Talk to me about the idea of who we can become. What is it you want us to believe?
Yeah. My biggest hope, prayer, intention is that each person closes this book and is better able to hear their own gut and trust themselves. And what I mean by that is, I think what Jay-Z said is so right? But I also think it's not a victory, because we're told so many times, keep going, don't give up, don't give up. Like since the time we're little kids, we watch, even if we don't play sports, we watch movies and kids are taught, just don't quit, don't give up. I actually think it's a failure if we don't ever learn how to tune in and hear our own gut and our truth and our calling, and then we just keep going and don't give up anyway, and we're not on the right path. And what I mean by that is, since the time I was a little girl, I'd watch Oprah in my living room, and I just had this knowing, oh, I want to interview other people. Like my whole instincts, Tom, I literally just want to ask you questions right now about you and Lisa, who I'm obsessed with, and like that's my who I am, right? I love other people's stories. And so I knew that's what I always want to do for my career. So, eventually, that's what I did. I was working as a journalist. I was working as a television news anchor. And when I got that problem, and I mentioned earlier, that skin problem, I was at this moment in time. And I think, hopefully everyone in Impact Theory community, like wherever you're at in life right now, at this very moment, I believe everyone has a knowing inside of them. I don't think it matters if they have a faith or no faith. I don't think it matters any of that. I think everyone universally has a knowing or a truth inside. And I think most people never learn how to get still and hear it. And most people, if they do get still and hear it, they're going to know right now, live, while they're listening to you and me, are they in the right job they're supposed to be in? Or are they playing it small? Are they in the right relationship? Or are they in it and dimming their own light because of fear that maybe they'll be alone? We all have a knowing, right? And, what I'll say about the idea of giving up, leveling up, all of that, I think it's so important that, in that moment where I had and again, let me just say, there's so much I did wrong, and I share all that stuff too. But one of the things I did right was when I had this gut feeling as I'm sitting there with this skin problem, this gut feeling, oh, you're supposed to figure out how to create a beauty company. Even though I knew nobody in the beauty industry, had no connections, had very little money because television news does not pay very well. I had that knowing, right? And yet I was sitting there in my dream job. Like that was my dream job since the time I was a little kid. So I think sometimes like knowing when to let go of a dream, knowing when to quit is actually a victory too. It's actually as important as when to keep going, right? And so with Jay-Z's quote, the genius thing we did was we didn't give up. I think that applies only if someone hears their truth and says, all right, I have this knowing I'm supposed to be doing what I'm doing. And when I look back at this journey of 3 years of constant rejection, down to under $1,000 in our bank account, literally getting knocked down over and over from all of these beauty retailers that I put on a pedestal, and I couldn't understand why they were telling me I wasn't the right fit for them. Every time I would check in with my gut, right? And maybe so many people out there can relate to this because you feel like you're doing something you're supposed to be doing. But like for me, there was no proof around me that my idea was right. There was no traction in my business. There was nobody saying, yeah, that's a great idea. Let me buy your product. And then I'm going to the beauty retailers and they didn't believe in the brand. And everything around me was saying, you're wrong. And the easiest thing in life is to confuse that with the truth. And I think the only way we know the truth in life is when we get good at getting still and hearing that inner knowing. And so for me, every time I would get knocked down, I would just check in, get still. And it's hard sometimes because a lot of people out there, they have not heard their own gut in a long time, right? Because we have like our friends and family that are worried about us if we're, or they're seeing everything through the lens of their own life and their own fear and their own experience or lack of experience. And then we have, in my case, experts who I valued so much saying like, you're not the right fit. You're not, not literally saying no. And as you know, as I shared in so many stories in the book, they said so many other crazier things that all but basically said, like, it's not just a no now, it's a no forever. Right. But I think the victory is learning to get still and hearing your knowing and then trusting it. A lot of people don't trust themselves. And I think that is what keeps people inside their comfort zone in life, which I think when you stay in your comfort zone, it chips away at your soul, and you end up talking yourself out of your own truth and then never becoming the person you're born to be. Not to get all dramatic on impact theory, but that to me is the biggest. And listen, to me, it's not about the outcome. Oh, here's how to create $1 billion company. It's about the journey of, are you stepping into all of who you are and the person you're born to be? And how do you do that?
All right. That was amazing. But now are you ready to get into the weeds on this idea?
Let's do it.
In your book, you talk about developing your intuition. How do people develop their intuition so that when they need to turn to it and they learn to be still and listen to it, that it actually gives them good advice?
Yeah. The very first step is to pay attention, right? Listen, we are so busy in our lives right now. And so many of us with all the stuff going on with the pandemic, with this, with that, with our job, and then frankly, at the end of some days, all I want to do is scroll Instagram or like yesterday, eat candy hearts for Valentine's Day. Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to like actually put in the work, but I believe that it's so important. Like if someone's going to do anything and you hear so much about morning routine or this or that or whatever, taking 5 minutes a day and just starting building that muscle. And at first it may make no sense, right? Especially because so many people are out of practice, but literally getting still, even if you have to just go sit in a closet, leave your phone out, just go sit in a closet and just see what you think. And can you hear your own truth? And another thing I would say, just as a real fundamental level, is to look back at your past, because I believe it's something we build over time if we pay attention, right? And I can say that most of my mistakes I've made when I look back is because I didn't trust my own gut and I trusted my mind instead. And my mind was able to say, oh, these are all the experts. They're experts for a reason. They're touted visionaries, and they're telling you to change this about your product packaging, or they're telling you to do this about, and they have a proven track record and you don't. So even though, Jamie, you have some gut feeling, like my mind won. And when that's happened, those are some of my biggest mistakes. And I think looking back on that's important, just to like break it down at a real fundamental level. So many of us have dated the person we know is not right for us. You know what I mean? But we know, right? And I can think of times where I was dating a guy who I was so into, and like his phone broke and he disappeared. And I knew he's lying. I knew it, but I didn't want to know it. Right? So what happens? I'm like, oh, well, it's only the first time it's ever happened. Maybe he's telling the truth. Maybe all the things, right? I know he's sketchy. I know he's lying, right? But sometimes we know, and this is such a basic example, and we just choose to not, to talk ourselves out of it anyway, right? And I think that every human being can really actually just put in a little time thinking about different moments in their life and actually start to remember, like, did I have a gut feeling about this at the time, or did I not? Or, was there a time I listened to that inner knowing and I was right? Right. And we start thinking about those times, and it starts to build up our own trust in ourselves over time. And for me, this was a huge way that I was able to keep going. You mentioned one thing that I remember, Tom, after, we were a couple years into our business, and I had been sending our product out to all the retailers and saying, hey, I want to show models that actually have skin challenges like I do. And that had never been done before, right? And I wanted to do all these things. and they were all telling me no, and it's not the right fit. And I knew my product was really good. I learned the hard lesson a lot of entrepreneurs learn, that you can have a great product or a great course or a great service but that's not enough. Like, people have to know it exists, right? And when you have no money and no ad budget, that's really hard. And this is 2008, 2009. 2010, YouTube wasn't huge yet. So no one had gone out there and said, oh, instead of overly photoshopped, perfect skin models, let's show real people with real skin challenges and all ages and sizes and skin tones. And that's what I had this vision for, because that's what I was, and we created a product that was so good. And then after all these rejections from all the department stores, all the beauty stores saying, no, thank you, it's a pass, your product will never sell, those kind of images don't work. I had one store tell me women will only buy from an aspirational image of beauty they'll never be able to look like. If they can actually look that way, they won't buy it. And it was just like over and over and over rejection. And I'll never forget this one moment, just to share as an example, because it helped me develop my intuition muscle so strongly. But we had gotten an inbound call from a potential investor, and they were a really well-known private equity company, and they invested in a lot of consumer products in the grocery stores, like household names that we buy. They loved our product. And so we started taking meetings with them, and I was so freaking excited, because I felt like, oh my gosh, if they invest in us, then maybe they'll use their leverage to get us into these retailers. And also I won't go bankrupt and all those things. And there's that. And so we did meetings. We started the diligence phase. We presented product pipelines, all that stuff. And it got down to the last meeting, and my husband and I flew there for the meeting. And it was the head guy. He was standing about 3 feet from me. And I thought it was going to be like the best day of my life. Right. And I'll never forget, he was 3 feet away, and he says to me, I just don't think women, well, he said, it's a no, we're going to pass on investing in IT Cosmetics. And like, I'd heard no thousands of times, right? So I'm like devastated, but I'm like, okay, can you share why? Because feedback is usually a gift. And he says, do you want me to be really honest with you? And I said, yes. And he literally was 3 feet from me, and he said, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. And I remember when he said that to me, a bunch of things happened. The first thing was I remember feeling like my whole body fled with like a lifetime of body issues, body doubt and self-doubt. And I felt all that. So it kind of felt like I was staring my own fear straight in the eye, talking to him. I never felt anger toward him. I felt hurt and crushed. But I also got this feeling. I'll never forget this, Tom. I'll never forget this the rest of my life. I got this feeling, like literally in my gut, like a knowing he's wrong. Even though I was still doubting myself, even though I had dealt with like a lifetime of body doubt, I got this feeling he's wrong. And I remember that feeling, because I remember then for a few years wondering, like, am I right or is he right? I would still doubt myself, right? And I went out in my car and I cried, and I had to figure out, how do I turn down the volume in my own head and not replay those hurtful words over and over and over? But I also remember that feeling I got. And this is a big business thing, not to be off topic, but like one of the things I did do right was I never took rejection personally in business, right? I always figured out how to go, okay, like if this is a game of chess, maybe we will partner one day. So I'm just going to pretend we are with every retailer, and I'm just going to keep sending them product and keep sending them updates and keep telling them I can't wait till I'm in your store, no matter how bad that rejection hurt. And in his case, what I realized also was, oh, okay, the reason I'm creating this company, I want to try to shift culture and beauty. I want to try to use different images of models. And he's literally passing on investing in my company because he is just as much influenced by a lifetime of seeing beauty images too. So he believes also, whether he realizes it or not, you have to look a certain way to sell products. And the last thing I'll say about that is I do believe in that famous saying that like rejection's God's protection, right? And you could say rejection's the universe's protection. I do believe in sayings like that. And when you fast forward 6 years later, the day that L'Oreal bought It Cosmetics, it was all over the Wall Street Journal homepage. It was everywhere online because they're a public company. So that means for them, they decided to release the purchase price, everything. I got an email from that guy, from that investor. I got an email that day that said, congratulations. I'm so happy for you. I was wrong. But the other thing, when I talk about like rejection is God's protection, I really believe that, because even though we don't see it at the time and it doesn't make sense at the time, but like, I was so desperate, Tom, I would have probably given him the majority of the company for like almost no money. And because he didn't believe in us, and because so many people rejected us along the way, by the time we did sell our business to L'Oreal, we're still the largest shareholders. So it was like, there's so many situations like that. But anyhow, that deep knowing, that knowing he's wrong, that's an example of, okay, looking back over time, where did I make mistakes and where did I do things right? And then we refine that muscle of learning, oh yeah, learning to trust ourselves.
There's so much in that is extraordinary. We're now going to test my abilities as an interviewer to see if I can tease out some of the things that you talk about in the book to put a capstone on this idea of training your intuition. So I have a deep and abiding fear of being spiritual entertainment. People will be moved by you. They will be moved by your story. But if they're very careful and they pay close attention, it will change how they move through the world, certainly as a person just pursuing goals, but potentially even as somebody who wants to start their own business.
Self-confidence and self-worth are completely different. We so easily confuse the two, and understanding the difference is literally the one thing that will change everything in your life. There are so many of us, myself included, who have actually done so much great work to build self-confidence. But then we sabotage things, we stay stuck, we don't get what we want because we don't realize, oh, I have a whole lot of self-confidence, but I actually don't have strong self-worth. And they're very different. They're very, very different. So self-worth is truly the one thing that can change everything in your life. In your life, your relationships, your goals, your dreams, your ambitions, your amount of joy and fulfillment. So in Worthy, which is all about, how to believe you're enough and transform your life. There's simple steps that give life-changing results. There is an entire chapter called The One Thing That Changes Everything. And I break down, and I'm going to share right now in this video as well, but I go deep in here on breaking down the difference between self-confidence and self-worth. Both are important, but so many of us literally live our entire lives just building self-confidence. And then we never realize, why don't we feel like we're enough? We keep accomplishing more and more and more, and we finally do enough and have enough and become enough and all that, but we still don't feel like we're enough. It's because of not understanding the difference, and it's because of doing all the things that build self-confidence, but none of the things that build self-worth. So let me just break this down for a minute, because this is so important, okay? Self-confidence, while an internal trait, is actually based on so much happening around you externally, and it fluctuates all the time. Self-confidence, while an internal trait, is based on so much externally. So your self-confidence right now is based on things like your own assessment of your skills and abilities, your willingness to try and go for it. If you keep the promises you make to yourself, how you feel you stack up or compare to others, how much of the world's definition of success you believe you have. All those things impact your self-confidence. It can rise and fall quickly based on if you're winning or losing, right? There's studies that show the boxer who wins the match is automatically 30% more confident, right? Your confidence fluctuates. It's fragile, it's volatile. Your self-worth is the deep internal belief in knowing that you are worthy of love and belonging exactly as you are. Not as you achieve, not as what's happening all around you in the outside world, but knowing you are worthy of love and belonging exactly as you are. Another way to put this is self-confidence is your belief in your abilities as a person. Self-worth is your belief in your value as a person. Your self-worth is the foundation. Your self-confidence is the house you build upon it. But you'll only ever be as strong as the foundation that house is built upon. And here's what this looks like in our lives, right? So many of us, let me just ask you this question right off the top. Have you ever had something you really wanted, and you thought, if I eventually get that thing, then I'll be happy. Then I'll be fulfilled. Then I'll feel enough. Maybe it is a job title, or it's a certain number in the bank account, or it's, 6-pack abs, a certain goal weight. Maybe it is, running the triathlon or doing the triathlon. Maybe it's getting the white picket fence or getting married or, falling in love or having 2.5 kids. Have you ever wanted that thing and just thought, one day when I get that, then I'll finally feel happy and fulfilled? And then for so many of us, we've had those things and then we get the thing, right? For some of us, we work really, really hard for years and we finally get the thing. And let me ask you this, when you finally got the thing, then what happened? Were all your hopes and dreams did they miraculously happen? Were you happy and fulfilled and enough forever? Or did you feel this temporary high followed by a slow descent back to feeling like something's missing and like you don't know what's missing, but you just feel like you're not enough and something's missing from your life? Okay, here's why. It's because in the pursuit of all those things, you built a whole lot of self-confidence, but none of those things build self-worth. Self-confidence is really, really important in life, as is growth, always growing in one area or another, as is contributing to something greater than yourself. Those three things are really important, but you multiply all those by your level of self-worth to get your level of ultimate fulfillment in life. Building strong self-worth is truly the one thing that changes everything. It's why I wrote Worthy. There's over 20 tools in here on how to build strong self-worth. Because here's the deal. When you don't, and by the way, there have been so many times in my life where I had so much confidence and I didn't understand why I didn't feel enough, or I didn't understand why I sabotaged an opportunity, or I didn't understand why I stayed stuck and didn't put my art or my ideas or my full expression of my business out there. It's because we will not, over time, we will not perform to the level of our potential. We will plateau at the level of our self-worth. Every time, over time. Every time, over time. It's why you've seen people out there in the world that can achieve everything, have every level of what the world defines success as, fame, fortune, whatever it might be. And they're not happy. And they're not happy, right? Strong self-worth is literally the one thing that changes everything. And if you are wondering if this is an issue in your life, there's really 3 ways that low self-worth can show up, right? One, if we have really, really, really low self-worth, we'll stay stuck. We'll know we have great ideas or we're deserving of an amazing romantic relationship, but we'll stay stuck in one that's not good for our soul. And we don't realize it's because we don't fully feel we're worthy of a great relationship, right? We'll stay stuck and not go after the thing. We'll stay stuck and not write the first word of our book that we know we're born to write. We'll just stay stuck and never go for the thing because we don't believe we're worthy of it. We don't realize that's what it is, but that's so often what it is. So that's one way, staying stuck, right? Another way is if we have, a little bit more self-worth, maybe low self-worth, we'll actually go for things and then we'll sabotage them. We'll meet a really incredible potential partner and we'll somehow mess it up or put them in the friend zone. We literally sometimes just aren't even attracted to them and we don't know why, even though they're a great person. It's because when deep down inside we have low self-worth, we don't believe we're worthy of it. Or we'll go after a big opportunity and we'll be so confident doing it and then we'll just somehow sabotage it. And then if you have medium self-worth, but it's not quite high, you'll actually go for things. You'll accomplish them, right? You may even believe you're worthy of them. But if you only have medium level self-worth, you'll arrive at them and still feel like you're not enough. You'll still feel empty inside. There's so many people in marriages or in, incredible situations in their career where they feel like something's missing, like it's not enough. And they don't know what it is. So they think it's their partner or they think it's their job, right? What it is deep down inside, they haven't done the work to build strong, unshakable self-worth. Your self-worth is the one thing that literally changes everything. So step one is to be aware of the difference between self-confidence and self-worth. Your self-worth is your unremitting identity and your belief that you are enough exactly as you are. And by the way, when you learn to believe you're enough exactly as you are, it doesn't prevent you from being ambitious. It actually gives you more ambition because you're not afraid to fail because it doesn't impact your self-worth. You're not afraid to put yourself out there to go for things, even if you fall flat on your face, because that might hurt your confidence for a minute, but it does not determine your self-worth. Your self-worth is deep, it's internal, it's unwavering. It's why I wrote Worthy, because literally when you learn to build your self-worth, there's over 20 tools in here on how to do it. It is the one thing that transforms everything. Have you ever dimmed your light or shrunk who you are to try and fit in, to try and make other people comfortable? There is a lie that so many of us have believed that if I stand out, I'll get kicked out. Meaning, if I'm too great, I somehow won't feel loved and I won't feel like I belong. I won't be accepted. And it has so many of us downplaying our strengths, hiding our wins and victories, especially girls and women, and just thinking if I stand out, I'll get kicked out. So I'm gonna play life small. I'm gonna call it being humble. I'm gonna call it being, like the right thing to do, when all it does is have you show up inauthentically, first of all, and it then gives that signal to other girls and women to shrink who they are too, right? Here's the thing, like so many of us learn this lie: if I stand out, I'll get kicked out. From the time we're little girls, we often learn to make decisions based on consensus. Like if I know what I want and I know what I want to say and how I feel, somehow that's not the acceptable thing to do. I've got to take a survey of all my friends around me, see how we all feel together about if we like this thing or don't like this thing. And then that turns into us as adults not trusting ourselves, right? Feeling like, okay, I need to take a poll on how I feel. I need to see how all my friends feel about this thing, if I should stay in this relationship, if I should, wear this dress, if I should, all the things. And then we start learning, but when you have a gift and a strong, passionate feeling and an idea and a thought and a dress you love, you don't want to stand out if no one else loves it. You might get kicked out. Or if you have huge talents, maybe you had a huge victory or, whatever it might be, we learn if we stand out, we get kicked out, and it's a lie. It leads us to feeling like we are diminishing who we are to fit in. So we play life small, we shrink, we try to do things that make other people more comfortable. We downplay our talents and our gifts and our strengths. And then it looks like all the studies coming out, right? You look at some of the studies in the workplace where men are promoted on potential, women are only promoted based on past performance, right? We feel like we have to do things perfectly and accomplish it all perfectly for us to be enough. And then when we're really, really great, we dial it back because we don't want to make anyone else feel uncomfortable. And then here's the thing, y'all. Because we don't let others see our light shine, because we often don't even acknowledge our light shining, we somehow doubt it's that bright. Even in our soul, we know it is. We then arriving to this place one day in life where we all of a sudden feel invisible and like we're fully unseen and like we don't even see ourselves. Learning to embrace who you are, your strengths, your abilities, your big, bold, wild, amazing ideas, your talents, your gifts, your quirkiness, your style, all of it, even if it stands out. Learning to share it and express it as all of who you are is one of the most powerful things you can do. Because every time you show up in this world as who you authentically are, you are telling yourself you are worthy and enough just as you are. Every time you dim your light, you shrink who you are, you show up inauthentically, you are telling yourself you are unworthy of being all of who you are. This is huge because it impacts your self-worth, and your self-worth is the foundation to everything. Like in life, I say this all the time, we don't rise to what we believe is possible in our life, in our relationships, in our goals, in our dreams, in our ambitions, in our friendships. We don't rise to what we believe is possible. We fall to what we believe we're worthy of. So in the book Worthy, I go deep into all of the lies that we need to unlearn, the lies that lead to self-doubt that we need to unlearn. And one of those is, if I stand out, I'll get kicked out. And it's how to unlearn the lie and actually build enough self-worth to step into who you truly are, say what you truly mean, and how you truly feel. And I just want to wrap up this video by saying that for you, if self-worth is something that, if you're always feeling like you're just not quite enough, that is a self-worth thing. You can build confidence, self-confidence all day long. That is how you see your skills and abilities as a person, but your self-worth is different. It's what you believe your value as a person is. And you can build all the confidence in the world and still never feel enough. Building self-worth is so critical. So that's why I wrote Worthy. And I just want to say that today I hope you take one step to stand out, to put your idea out there, to say what you really mean, to say how you really feel. If you know the answer, shout it out. If you want to wear the dress, wear the dress. If you want to crack the joke, even if no one else thinks it's funny but you, be fully funny you. Like all of it, right? Let your light shine so bright, and don't be worried it's going to get you kicked out because you stand out. Like when you let your light shine so bright, you are giving another person permission and an example of how they are worthy of letting their light shine fully. I want to read a quote, a famous quote from Marianne Williamson that I have in Worthy as well, that I think is so powerful today. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that was within us. It's not just within some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Marianne Williamson. Today, let your light shine.
I get a lot of questions from listeners who, because of the things that have happened in their past, they don't know how to trust their intuition. And I get a lot of questions about decision making and how to truly, in a situation like this, where you are burning through your entire life savings, you have left your dream job, you have gotten no after no after no after no after no. How do you stay connected to your intuition in a situation like that? What tool do you have, or what advice can you give to somebody who's having trouble hearing what the right decision is in that kind of situation?
Yeah. So I think that intuition is like a muscle that we build over time. And I think it's a lifelong journey that, to really learning how to hear it and to trust it. And one of the greatest tools I think is to think back to times in your life where maybe you had this gut feeling to do something and everyone around you said, don't do it. So you listen to them, you didn't trust yourself, and then think about what happened. Right. And then similarly, go back to a time where everyone was like, oh, no way, no way. And you're like, but I love him. I don't think he's lying. I think his phone really did break 5 times every weekend. He didn't disappear his phone. Like, right. Think about like that situation when everyone was telling you something and you didn't listen, or even your gut was telling you, right? And you didn't listen, and you think back to those times and you start to develop pattern recognition of how it felt in moments in your life when you trusted yourself or didn't, and what happened, and you get better attuned to what that feels like. So
What does it feel like for you in both situations? Like, can you describe what it feels like for you when you're like, yep, no, that's a no?
yes.
And what does it feel like for you when you're like, I'm sticking with this?
Yeah. Often it's the tiniest of feelings in my gut, right? Some people describe it as like a still small voice. I pray about it. I ask God to give me the answers and I try to live the answers.
Do you feel the answers that God gives you? Like, is that what happens for you when you do this?
Like right now when I look at you, right?
Yeah.
Like I know you're a beautiful soul, right? I just know it. You know it. You feel it. Like I feel like you have good, like you're good. You know what I mean? It's a feeling, right? And we get these feelings, but so much around us is so loud. And we just learn over time. And by the way, not to go, this could be a whole other episode, but especially as women, from the time we're young, we learn not to trust ourselves. We walk into our parents fighting and we go, is everything okay? They're like, everything's great. Everything is great, right? To protect us, we start to learn to doubt ourselves.
Baloney.
Right?
Yep.
But or especially as young girls, you learn to make decisions by consensus, often with your friends. And
making other people happy.
Making other people happy. People pleasing. We're rewarded for pleasing everyone else and almost ignoring what we feel. So if you're someone who's an adult right now going, I don't even know how to hear my own gut or trust myself, that's why we've been trained out of learning how to do it, right? So it takes intentionality and really deciding, oh, you know what? I'm going to put in some time, even if it's 5 minutes a day, just to thinking about moments in my life where I trusted myself, where I didn't. And if you don't remember any of them, start now.
You know what you just inspired me to think about? I don't even know if it's possible to do this. But imagine if you could go through the rest of today and only make decisions that align with what you truly want. If you don't want to go to that party tonight, don't go. If a friend asks you something and you feel obligated out of guilt to lend them that thing, don't actually lend them the thing.
Yeah.
Eat what you want to eat tonight for dinner. Don't just go to wherever your friends want to go. Like, I think that would be a real eye-opening experiment if you were to do that.
And you start building that muscle, right? And the more you do that, some people don't even pay attention to what they actually want to eat for dinner. They're just like, what sounds good to everyone? But to your point, when you start paying attention, then you also start building that knowing of hearing your own knowing.
Do you think it's possible to discover your unique purpose in life if you are not connected and listening to your intention? And intuition, I mean.
And your own intuition. Here's how I think it's way more likely, and you're going to actually discover more than one purpose often if you're really tuned in to your intuition and you're intentional about it. But what I'll say for someone who feels like they can't hear their gut, but they still want to find their purpose, a friend of mine, Rory Vaden, says that you're best positioned to serve the person you once were. Right. Trent Shelton, our friend, says one day the things you're going through right now will be the things you made it through.
Yeah.
And what I would say to someone listening right now is look at something in the past that has broken your heart, that has caused you grief, that has been something that you care deeply about, whether it's positive or negative, that you've gone through, something you care deeply about, or maybe pain you've gone through, something you have made it through. I believe often when we go through the hardest times in our life,
Yep.
it's for one of two reasons.
What are they?
It is to either equip us with the strength we need to carry the weight of our success that's to come, to carry the weight of our purpose that's to come, or we've gone through these horrible, unspeakable times, things we would never want to happen to us again in our life, because we're actually going to get our greatest source of fulfillment and purpose by one day helping someone else who's going through them. And
I love that saying that you're best equipped to help the person you used to be.
yes, yes.
So let's talk about the gut then, because there's
Yeah.
multiple things that you just said there that all you've led back to the gut. And
yeah.
in hindsight, everyone listening and watching are going, well done for trusting your gut. But there are many times that, at least for me, I've trusted my gut and I was wrong.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I've learned my lesson and then I move on.
Yeah.
So I want to start with you're a news anchor, you've got the blotches, nothing was working for you, you're going to try your own. What made you trust your gut in that sense? Because like you said, you had college debt, so you have all this stuff that's stacked against you.
Yeah.
It's based on beauty, which for women is very emotional.
Yeah.
So how did you keep going and like try to find a solution instead of just hide away? Like, what are the things that you told yourself that pushed you to keep going and trust your gut that this was the right path for you?
I've always had this feeling deep down inside, like I'm meant to do great things that help other people.
Interesting.
I've always kind of just known it. Even when I took the low-paying job to learn journalism instead of like a super high-paying, consultant or banking job, I just feel like if we get one life, I want to, like, the day I die, which God willing, it's a long time in the future, like I want to literally know there's nothing left in me that could have been used to help someone else.
And you felt that even back when you were the news anchor.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So because I actually didn't feel like that.
No?
I do now.
You do now,
I feel
yeah.
like
So you
now,
know
like
it,
my,
right? That
my
feeling.
purpose of all the failures that I've had, all the problems, all the health issues, my purpose now is to speak it so that it can
Yes.
help other people.
And
but
it
back,
does.
But back
And
when I
thank you.
started, it didn't. It was actually, if I can be so honest, it was out of pure ego. So when people told me you can't do it, you're not good enough to do it, you're dumb, you're stupid,
Yeah.
what are you doing, you're not
Yeah.
talented, I was just stubborn enough to say, I can do it. I'm going to prove them wrong. And it was
Right.
out of stubbornness, not out of like, I want to share it with the world,
Yeah.
that actually pushed me to then show myself what
Yeah.
I was capable of.
So you were driven by ego
So-
because you're like, I'm going to prove them wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then I
yeah.
realized, wow, I'm actually did do it and I'm kind of capable. And so
Yes.
then it's like, well, if you're capable, what else can you do?
Yes.
And so that became the foundation of then, okay, maybe I have a superpower. So if I have a superpower now, how am I going to help others? So it kind of became a transition for me versus then just an initial, like, from the beginning. So that's why it's really impressive that you felt that even before you had any validation that you can do it or that you have the ability to do it.
Yeah, I've always had that feeling. And it's funny that you say this. I've definitely done things for ego. I have definitely done things for ego. And most of the time when I do that, I regret it. It doesn't feel right, right? You know what I'm saying? And sometimes I do stuff on ego and it turns out great and whatever, but it's like it doesn't compare to that feeling of knowing you're doing something bigger than yourself. I feel like when you spend the time to really think about your why and why you're doing it, why or how it's bigger than yourself, that will sustain you through so many hard times, right? Because just hearing some of what you're sharing, I'm having flashbacks even to so many of the hard times, even once we finally got yeses and finally we're on QVC and all of that, when you're putting in 100-hour weeks and when stuff doesn't go your way and all that, and when your why is bigger than yourself, it sometimes it's like that's the only thing that gets you through those hard times and keeps you going. Because sometimes if it's just for ourselves or our own ego, it's not a strong enough why. When you are so burnt out and you feel defeated and you feel like self-doubt's entering your mind. It's like money isn't a strong enough why, because you can go get another job and get money. You know what I mean? It's like really peeling back the layers on what you're doing and really getting to that true why that means so much to you. And for some people, it's, I'm going to change this generation of my family. Where I come from is not where I'm going. I'm not going to have my children go through what I went through, right? And that why is huge. It doesn't have to be a why to go change the outside world. It might be a why to change inside your own home. And sometimes just like not not giving up and just keeping going is the difference too in making it. You know what I mean?
Oh, so how do you do that then when you're in a moment?
Yeah.
So you've got your why, very strong why.
Yes.
You're going to impact women and how they feel about themselves. It's not just like you want to make them super glamorous. It's like you're going to change how they feel about themselves. And that can lead to so many incredible things, being a better mother, being a better wife, being a better employee, a better business owner, whatever it is. I think that can really lead to something.
Yeah.
So you've got your strong why. Now, you've got your strong why, but you only have $1,000 left.
Yes, I know.
How is the why strong enough to get you through it? Or was there something else that you had to do to tell yourself, like, no, keep going? Because that's where people go like, all right, look, at some point, if something is failing, at some point you have to let it go.
Yeah. So two things. So for me, and this is so personal to everyone and to what they believe in. For me, faith is huge in my life, and I feel like I hear my faith through my gut feelings. You know, I really do. And there were nights where I was just like, is this what we're supposed to do? That combined with really freaking hard work and like, let's just keep it really real, because sometimes, and I don't know how we're going here to Denny's and all the really real stuff, but what I love about it is, you know, if any of your community has heard any of my story before, they've probably just heard the $1 billion fairy tale. And the real of it is, when we were under $1,000, we were trying to get SBA loans from anyone that would give one. No one would give one, and they shouldn't have, because it's like, you know, you're trying to show a business plan for projected sales when you don't even have any. You know, we were doing 2 to 3 orders a day on our website, but you know what? It's a choice. I chose, instead of having a job that paid me a salary, I chose to be an entrepreneur. And it's like, okay, but you got to hustle, and you got to, you know, sometimes that's what you have to just do.
Because you didn't take like a day off, right? You guys, you and your husband worked like 100-hour work week, 7 days a week for 10 years.
For 10 years.
And I think it, like you said, it's important to stress that. You freaking busted your ass.
Yeah, we did. And it was like when we got down to $1,000, we went and spent part of it on IKEA desks to put in the living room, because we had an in-person office tour with California Bank and Trust, which was the last bank that was going to consider giving us an SBA loan. And but that, you know, we got the last person said yes on the SBA loan, which kept us alive a little bit longer. We were still only doing the 2 to 3 orders a day from our website, and right around that time we got a first yes finally for QVC, but we had one shot and only 10 minutes. And
you'd been going after QVC for a long time,
going
right?
after him for a long time, and always hearing no. I remember, oh my gosh, like the number of no's from everybody. And so there is a guy named Alan Burke who was like the head of beauty at QVC, and he got all of those like really high-end department store beauty brands to really want to go on QVC and all the designer brands. And so he was the head of all of it. And I remember one day I finally got, I think it was a call from his assistant saying he wants to have a call with you. He's reviewed your product. And I like thought this was going to be our big break. And he was very quick. And he said, I reviewed your product with our buyers, and you're not the right fit for QVC. I'm sorry, and I wish you the best of luck. And I just remember crying myself to sleep that night. And just, you know, have you ever like had something happen where, you know, that goes wrong or doesn't go your way, and then like the next day you wake up and you like hoped it was a dream?
Yes.
And then you're like, it wasn't.
You have to relive it almost, yes.
Yes.
So for you, in those moments, you're hearing no over and over again. Most people would have stopped at number 1.
Yeah.
A lot of people would have stopped at number 2. Majority would have stopped at number 3. You kept going. This was like years and years and years of you like hounding Sephora and QVC. And so
Yes.
What is it? Is it just your innate ability to get back up? Or did you have to coach yourself in your mind to say, no, you believe in this, remember your why? Like, what does that actually look like?
Both. I feel like when I look back on things, and this is what I love, it's like even if you're in a space right now in your life where you're like, this isn't where I want to be, I would just trust it, because I look back at like when I was a news anchor, I would get emails that were so mean, like, are you pregnant? Are you, right? I had a news director at one of my jobs that would just tear me to shreds, appearance-wise, stuff like that. And I really feel like it helped me get really strong, so that rejection started to hurt a little less, but it still hurts. But resiliency is like the most important skill, I think. I think what's tricky is going, okay, am I putting good money after bad, right? Which is like a famous saying, meaning, does every sign tell me this is a bad idea? And do I keep wasting my time and money? You know what I mean? That's the hardest thing to know, especially when you're building your business. And for me, the deciding factor for me was praying about it and realizing that I needed to keep my faith bigger than my fear, because I just felt in my gut what I was doing mattered and it was needed. I think fear kills more dreams than like almost anything else. Self-doubt and fear, I think, kills more dreams than almost anything. I was reading that famous Jay-Z quote where he says, the genius thing we did was we never gave up. And it's like, it's so true sometimes. And what's crazy is I would have saved myself so many nights of crying myself to sleep had I known what I know now, which is just that if you're doing something novel or that's different, that hasn't been done before, of course, all these people that are experts aren't going to get it right away, because it's never been done before. So there's no proof out there that tells them, oh yeah, this is a good idea, or oh yeah, this is gonna succeed in your stores, or it's never been done before. So I shouldn't have been surprised that all these people that I thought were like, they would know if, they're gonna see our product and like love it right away. And the other thing I learned was, by persistence and by not letting those no's destroy every ounce of confidence I had, and every single person that told us no has now told us yes. But some of them told us no for years and many, many, many times. And here's the crazy thing, and I don't know the answer to this, but what I do know, Lisa, is had I listened to a lot of the ways they told me to change our product or change our positioning, had I listened to that, I don't think our brand would have worked. I don't think I'd be sitting here having sold it to L'Oreal, because L'Oreal has a lot of other great brands that do what's already been done really well. They're the best at it in the world. Had I not done something totally different that went against what all these other experts were saying to do, I wouldn't have created something of value that complemented their portfolio. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's Peter Diamandis. I think he said this. The day before a breakthrough is just another dumb idea, and it's like it's so true. Because you're getting no's a million times. You're also telling people, people being mean. Like in my intro, I said someone said to you, who's ever going to buy makeup from you? Yeah. So again,
that was one of the toughest things I've ever dealt with in my own head. Because what had happened was, so we had no money, as you know, as we've covered, and this investor who he had invested in a lot of consumer product companies. So he had a big, he was the head of a big private equity firm, and a lot of companies I love were his products that he had invested in and sold.
Okay.
And we finally got a meeting with him, and he was super interested in.
So it's someone you're super excited about.
Yes.
Someone you're amped about. Someone
have a
you
lot
admire,
of respect for.
Respect.
Yes.
Okay, makes it even worse.
I know, and they loved our idea of what we were doing with our products and with our company. I'm like, this is amazing, because if they invest in us, then A, we're not gonna go bankrupt tomorrow, and B, maybe they can help us get into these retail stores. And like, I was so excited. And then I'll never forget this. In person, this guy was like a foot and a half from me, and they said, we've decided to pass on the investment. It's a no. And I said, well, can you share with me a little bit why? Because feedback's always a gift, even when we don't want to hear it. And he said, well, do you want me to be honest with you? And I said, yes. And he goes, I'm not sure if women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you know, with your body and your weight, is what he said to me. And I remember looking at him and just like, while I tried to handle it with grace and just say, thank you for your feedback, I knew so strongly in my gut in that moment. So it was this combination of being hurt, really obviously hurt, but I just had this strong gut feeling that said, he's wrong. Like, he's wrong. And sometimes you just need to like bust out Google and just inspire yourself. So I remember after he said that, just for myself, I would look up so many of the people I admire most, who I think are just making huge changes in the world. And I would ask myself, if they changed their body, would they do better? No. Like, if they got all skinnier, got all whatever it is, like, people that change the world, what they look like, I think is irrelevant. I think it's how they feel, it's their heart, it's their intentions. And I would just, fill myself up with stuff like that, just to get myself back to that place of confidence again. And when we finally, so here's the thing, we got to a beauty show, this big beauty show in New York City. There were 6,000 women there. And they walk the show. And what happens in the show, this is how we got on QVC, by the way. If you're a brand that's had a new product launch that year, you can pay money to go there. You get a 3-foot table and you demonstrate your product. And so we had signed up to do it. And the hope by doing this is that the 6,000 women walking and testing out all the new products, that one of them will, work for a department store and get you in there, or one of them will, or they'll vote on your product and you'll get one of the awards. And so we were there doing that, and QVC had a huge booth there. And you're supposed to stay, you're not allowed to leave your 3-foot table, but I kept like trying to sneak away to see like if there were the buyers at the QVC booth, and I'd rush back to my table. And what I didn't realize is one of the women that I'd been showing the product to was a QVC show host, and I didn't recognize her and at the time, and I don't know if I was just spacing out or what. And so I was showing her the product and like telling her how much, why it exists and why it's different and special. And she said, my name is Miss Lisa Mason. I'm a QVC show host. And I just looked at her and she goes, I want you to know, I think your concealer is really special, and I think our women at home, our QVC gals, they would love this product. And I want you to know, I just went and told the buyer, I think we should have your product on. And I looked at her and tears just started streaming down my face, and I think I freaked her out. She's like, oh, sugar, I don't have any, like, she's like, oh, what did I just do?
Yeah,
she's like, I don't have any power to get I just want to let you know I did this, I believe in you. And I was like, thank you. And I was like, can I send you product? She's like, no, sugar, but I just want to let you know. So long story short, we got a meeting at QVC, and we got a yes. But what that meant was we have 10 minutes, one airing of 10 minutes, and you either hit their sales goal or you don't come back, right? And what I know now that I didn't know at the time is you might have 10 minutes, but if you're live on the air and you're not hitting numbers, all of a sudden your clock will go from 10 to 6. And then you're like, and you can't panic, and you have to have fun, and you can't try to sell, because the second you try to sell, nothing sells.
Nothing sells.
Nothing sells. So, and it'll be at 6 minutes, and like if it's really not doing well, it cuts to 2. And what's so hard is you're live on national television, and in the back of your head, I just lost a product, or I just lost, like, it's so much pressure. Thankfully, I didn't know that part in the first airing, but what I did know was we had 10 minutes and we had to hit a sales target or never come back. And we needed to sell over 6,000 units of our concealer in that 10-minute window. And I just felt like, okay, if women can see this live on television, how it works, and they can see how it will, change their lives, I can show it live on TV. And I just felt like this is it. And then here's where this appearance stuff resurfaced, right? And for any woman out there or man who struggles with do what I look matter? Does my weight matter? Does my size matter? Do my clothes matter? It sucks when sometimes things all around us tell us they do, right? And this is a moment where I had to make a decision where everything was on the line for my business. And what had happened, Lisa, was we had met with there's all these outside consultants, and they help a lot of people do well on television. And you know, they'll give you advice like, here's how you know, do your demonstrations, and here's the type of models to use, and here's, you know, what to say and not to say. And when I met with all the consultants, they all told me I needed to do this formula to work on air, which was cast only perfect skin models, all like the same age and skin tone and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, but I want to show my bright red rosacea and show how this works for me. And I want to show real women that are different ages and have different skin problems. And I want women all across the country that have never seen a model who looks like them and skin that looks like theirs. I want to show them live why I made this product. And every single consultant said that will not work. And if I want to have any chance of succeeding in my business, that I will do what they're saying, which is to do the formula, the only formula that had ever worked in beauty. And it was the most stressful probably moment of my whole career and decision of my whole career, because everything was on the line.
Yeah, break it down, and then how you decided to just ignore them and do your own thing, because like you said, everything's on the line. What did that process look like for you, where you said, they're experts, but I'm still not going to listen? So
I was freaking out. I flew out to QVC a week early.
I love the honesty, by the way. That's
oh my gosh. It was, and it's so funny. Because we had no money, so I took this, it was like 3 or 4 connections, because it was the cheapest way to get to Philly. I got there, I was in a rental car, and I drove to the QVC parking lot every single day for a week, and I sat there, literally trying to envision what was gonna happen in that 10 minutes, almost like the way I imagine Olympic athletes envision success. And I just knew in that moment, like I knew what I needed to do. I knew that if I went on QVC and did what everyone else had done, maybe my business would have succeeded at that time. But it wouldn't have been authentic to who I am. I'm not a makeup artist. I don't do makeup artist looks on people. It's not why I created the brand. It's not my why. So I would have been putting money and fear above the why I did this. And I just remember sitting in the parking lot and knowing even if I try and I go out there and I show my bare face, which is the last thing I want to do on national television, showing my bright red rosacea, but it wasn't about me. It was about, I wanted to shift culture in beauty. I wanted there to be models that look like real women. I imagine real women all across the country who have forgotten that they're beautiful and have forgotten that they matter. And I realized in that moment, if I don't sell and we miss the sales goal, at least for that 10 minutes, there will be women that turn their television on and they see models, aspirational models, who I'm standing on television calling beautiful, that look like them. And I'm showing women with skin problems and issues, and I want them to know we're all in this together, like we've all got this. But it was so scary, and I remember the camera goes live, the clock's at 10 minutes, and I remember it started counting down. And and I had this demonstration planned on my wrist, right, where I put these 2 beautiful department store concealers that are top sellers and ours, and I would bend my wrist and show they start breaking up and cracking, right, and ours doesn't, which is why it would cover my rosacea. So I had this thing planned, and I started doing it. But I was so stressed out. TV, I'm not nervous for. It was the business, the weight of everything. And my hand was like this. And I was like,
just like shaking like crazy.
And I was trying to show, and finally Lisa's like, thank you, sugar. And she shoves my hand under the podium that we're presenting from. And I remember at the 10-minute mark, literally the 10-minute mark, the sold out sign came up. And I just looked at Lisa and I just started crying. Because I was like, it was like real women had spoken. I'm so glad I listened to my gut. And I think sticking with the authenticity of our brand, even when everyone was saying it wasn't going to resonate, is why it's the only reason that we now built $1 billion company.
Something you just said, actually, so you've spent so much time and energy and effort putting every ounce of your being into it.
Yes.
You and your husband,
Yeah.
being super authentic, making sure that
Yeah.
you don't divert from your authenticity, being true to who you are, and then you sell the company.
Yeah.
My first question, I'm going to write a note for myself so I don't forget the second one, because I had two things I want to talk to you about. Was that I'd like to hear you talk a little bit about how you came. I realize this is sort of a vague, nebulous question. I'm not quite sure how you're going to answer, but how is it that you came to trust your own intuition when all your externals at the time are negative? You are not it's not like you're trusting your gut because everything's working, or you're trusting your intuition because opportunity is just like piling up. It was no, 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 no. What was it inside of you or outside of you? I don't really know. That gave you that clear sense of this North Star of knowing that you know what you know and staying the course until you got there.
Yeah. I'm 44 and still, and similar to you for me, first of all, I believe we all have an intuition, and I believe it's more powerful than anyone else's advice. For me, when I share sort of my whole journey in Believe It in my book, I don't just talk about overcoming self-doubt and body doubt. But I also talk about overcoming God doubt. And the reason I bring that up is for me, I went through a long journey with faith, and that included a few decades of God doubt and some big lessons on where my faith is now, which I believe beyond a shadow of a doubt God exists, but went through a big journey my whole life on that. But what I wanted to share about intuition is, for me, like when I pray, I feel like that is how I hear God, is through my intuition. And so I think that it is the most deeply spiritual practice, is being able to hear ourselves and make the decision to trust ourselves. And in my journey, though, it's been a journey, right? It's this, I think, lifelong, I believe it's a lifelong journey, almost like our intuition's like a muscle we build over time, and it gets stronger with use, and stronger when we look back on times. If someone were to say, how do I start to hear myself? I don't know if I ever have, or I haven't in a long time. I think one, just wanting to, right? And then two, really looking back at times when you kind of had a gut feeling, but maybe you didn't listen to it. And then what happened? And similarly, times where maybe everyone else gave you certain advice and you're like, and then you trusted yourself, and what happened then? And the more we start, paying attention to all those times in our life, like we all know when we dated like a guy that, his phone broke, or he disappeared for 3 days, and he's like, oh, but we all know, right? Yeah. We know we can choose to go, maybe his phone did break.
Totally.
Right. But we know. And I think it starts with really just like reflecting on all these moments in our life, or when we're in a group with girlfriends at coffee and something felt like it wasn't true or off, or, and we look back at those times. And I think the more we can do that, the stronger we build it going forward. Yeah. And in my journey, it was, and I think also as women, and I know you share a lot about this in some of your work, which I love, and it's so inspiring. But we are taught to not trust ourselves, or to make decisions based on consensus and all kinds of things, right? And, I think had I not figured this part out of being able to hear my gut and trust it, cosmetics would have been done in the first year. And in the journey, two examples or two stories, I should say, that stand out just to share, in case they're helpful for anyone who needs to hear this too now in their own life, especially is going through a season of what feels like setback or a rejection. But we were, building the business, and it was like no after no after no. And every time I would send my products to Sephora or Ulta, it was a no. Or I remember we got the head guy of QVC Beauty. So his name's Alan Burke. So he's this legend in the beauty industry. And he's the person that for many years, QVC was kind of known as selling like maybe products people hadn't quite heard of, and some of them they had, but he kind of turned it into this place where all the top luxury brands from department stores wanted to sell their beauty products on QVC. And he's this legend. And I remember this moment, I finally got him on the phone. Like his assistant said he's willing to do a call with me. And this is after a couple of years of sending my products in and hearing no. I was like, he's going to do a call. I'm like, there's no way it's going to be a no, because he would not waste his precious time. And I was like freaking out that this was going to be my big break. And I remember I was pacing our office, which is our living room, on the phone, on the phone, and when he called and I'm like, he's like, this is Alan Burke at QVC. I'm like, Alan, Jamie Kern Lima, so great to, I was trying to like tell myself they'd be lucky to have us, like all these things.
Totally.
Meanwhile, we were down to no money. We were down to, I didn't know how we were going to stay alive as a company. And we were only doing like 1 to 2 orders a day on our website.
Oh man.
And which, we were able to turn the lights on, but barely. And I didn't know what was going to happen. And I remember he said to me on the phone, he's like, thank you for sending your products. All of them. I sent him so many times for a couple of years. And he said, we've reviewed
all of them.
We've reviewed, your products with the whole buying team. He said it's unanimous. You're not the right fit for QVC or for our customers. And I was just like,
it's unanimous.
It's unanimous. And, he wanted me to know, like, every buyer has weighed in, and I was like devastated. Right. And I'm like, oh, but Alan, we are the right fit. And I went into like trying to pitch myself again and just like all the reasons. And he said, he thanked me. He was super kind. He thanked me for loving QVC, but said it's a no. Yeah. And at that point, I remember it felt like one of the biggest blows, because I had, when we talk about intuition, I had this feeling I couldn't shake in my gut that said, okay, you're supposed to be on QVC because you can't Photoshop live TV. You can put all these real women, different ages, shapes, sizes, prove your product works live, call them beautiful, mean it. Like I saw the whole thing in my head. Right. But what happened was for 2 years straight, they told me no every time. And a lot of times in life, we have these visions or these feelings that something is meant for us. And then we get no 1 time or 5 times or 20 times. And that's when we think our gut is wrong. Right. And I'll never forget that night. I went to bed, cried myself to sleep. And then I woke up the next morning feeling like hoping it was a dream. And then when you realize it's not, right? And that happened for 3 days in a row. But when it comes to intuition, the thing was, I was praying, crying. I was like, God, I don't understand why I keep feeling this is supposed to happen, and then it doesn't. And every time I would get still and try to literally hear that voice inside, that some people call it still small voice, some people call it intuition or gut feeling. Every time I did that, I kept feeling like I was supposed to keep going, and it was like, okay, with God and grace and grit, like I'm going to trust this feeling, even though it doesn't make sense. And by the way, I should clarify this. I think we're in a society that always is like, don't give up, whatever you do, as if that's the victory. I don't think that's the victory. I think there's a lot of people in jobs they don't love or in friendships or relationships that are not good for them, or they just keep the victory is not quitting. I don't think that's true. I think the victory is learning how to hear ourselves and trust ourselves, right? Like, like when I was in working as a news anchor, thinking that was my dream job, I think knowing when to let go of a dream is as important as knowing when to go after one.
That's good.
Me quitting
good word.
Was the victory. But I remember that feeling after Alan Burke had said those words to me, and I felt like I just talked to this legend, and all of a sudden, even he's telling me I'm not the right fit. And he's telling me it's not going to be a yes, and all those things. One other quick story, just on intuition. and then one fun ending to that is, we were struggling to know how are we going to stay alive, right? So this is the point where even QVC now, the head guy says no. Everyone's saying no. We're a couple years in. We're down to under $1,000 in our combined company and personal bank account, which just meant like, okay, we have a couple weeks left at any moment being able to pay bills and everything else. And we got an inbound call from a potential investor, a big private equity company. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be huge. And they loved our product. And I just, my mind went to this place of like, oh, if they invest, then I'm not going to go bankrupt. And they could probably use their power and their leverage to get us in these places that keep telling me no. And so we started taking meetings with this potential investor who's super well known. They've taken a bunch of pre-revenue companies and like a bunch of products we buy in grocery stores every day. They've turned them into household names. And I thought, we do that with It Cosmetics. I was so excited. And we did meeting after meeting, and I started the diligence phase where you show your whole product pipeline. And it got to the final meeting. My husband and I flew up for it. And I thought like, this is going to be life-changing. And we were in person, and I was about 3 feet from the head guy, and they congratulated us and thanked us for the product pipeline, all the kind of stuff. And he said to me, we want to let you know that, we've decided it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in It Cosmetics. And by this point, I had heard no a million times. And I was just like, okay, can you tell me why? Because, feedback is usually a gift. And I'm like, can you tell me why? And he paused for a long time, and he goes, do you want me to be really honest with you? And I'm like, yes, please. And he says, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. And in this moment, so a couple of things. When he said those words to me, and this is in person, 3 feet from him, my husband's right next to me, his whole team is there. When he said those words, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. First of all, a lifetime of bodied out, like flooded my body. And it felt like I was like staring my own fear straight in the eye in a way. But I'll never forget this moment, Jen. He said that to me. I didn't even feel anger. I mean, I cried in my car later, but I didn't feel anger toward him. I got this feeling in my gut that said he's wrong. Like I felt it was this, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was this feeling that said he's wrong. Now, I didn't know how to prove it. I had no sales. I had no, anything. And so over the next several years, I didn't hear from him for another 6 years, but over the next several years, just to share this in case, because here's the thing, we've all had somebody literally tell us we're not enough, or we're not
one way or another.
Right. One way or another, or they don't believe in us, or we need to change who we are if we're ever going to succeed. Right. Two things. I decided, instead of taking what he said personally, even though it hurt, what I realized, because I had done that work of knowing like why I was doing what I was doing, and my big, deep why for the company, I was able to realize, oh my gosh, he's just as much impacted by the beauty industry as I am. He's some dude deciding like, you can't make money for me because of how you look. That's basically what he's deciding. But he's really just a byproduct of an industry. And for me, it became this fuel of like, oh, wow, like this has got to change. And so that's one thing. The second thing is, over the next several years, like his words would come back in my head, right? How many times someone says something to us and we made the mistake of letting it take root, even though we didn't think we did. And so, I started really practicing this whole tool about, learning how, like I would literally imagine myself turning down the volume on his words. And then with intuition, with that feeling in that moment, I would do everything in my power to remember that feeling I had when he said it, which was he's wrong. Like that feeling. And I would try to amplify that and trust that and turn down the volume on his words. And I would do that a lot with rejection and everything else. And then, the last thing I'll say is, there's that famous saying, rejection's God's protection. And the relationship, I'm like leaning over like I'm on your couch. I'm like, sorry, I'm just realizing my posture in the screen. I'm like leaning into you like I'm like literally on your couch.
I'm propped. I'm like nodding. I'm with you. The same.
Totally. But there's that famous saying, rejection's God's protection. And it's just talking to you live. One of the things I just want to share is just all of us, every one of us, like our relationship with rejection and is, I think, one of the most defining things in our life about if we're ever going to become the person we're born to be, and like how we handle rejection. And the one thing that just hundreds and hundreds of rejections, I started seeing them as like, okay, I'm going to be one of the people that's going to trust my gut and go after I'm going to be a brave one that's going to like try to go after my dream or step into all of who I am. And I think with anyone that's ever done that in history or otherwise, it comes with so many rejections. And so I kind of started to learn to see rejection almost as a victory in a way. It's like a victory of being a brave one who's going after who she's born to be in life. And, it would still hurt and all those other things. But on the last thing on the rejections, God's protection, I try to see it that way every day in life too. And, 6 years later, when L'Oreal bought this little company I started in my living room, the day before the sale happened, they decided, because they're a public company, they decided to release the purchase price. So I didn't know that was happening. And I kind of panicked, because what happened is the very next day, it's on the homepage of the Wall Street Journal. It's everywhere, online, everywhere. It Cosmetics sells for $1.2 billion cash. And I heard from that investor.
Bet you did.
First time in 6 years.
Bet you did.
He said, congratulations on the L'Oreal deal. I'm so happy for you. I was wrong. And I learned it would have been the most successful investment in his firm's history had he invested. But here's the thing with rejection being protection, like at the time that I met with him, I was so desperate. Like, I didn't know, I probably would have given him the majority of the company for
totally.
Right.
Yeah.
But because he didn't believe in me, and a lot of other people did on the journey, but because he didn't, by the time we sold the L'Oreal, we were still the largest shareholders. So I was like, thank goodness he rejected me.
That's right.
And then Alan Burke with QVC, after we launched on QVC, he became one of my greatest mentors in my life.
That's great.
And when he retired from QVC, right, he was the head of all QVC Beauty that kind of had me crying myself to sleep and saying, you're not the right fit. Well, after he retired from QVC, he was such an important mentor in my life. We actually hired him for our advisory board at Cosmetics in a paid position. So the guy who rejected me was working for me, right?
It's so great.
I just want to share that, like no one can tell you, how big your dreams can be, or that you're not the right fit, or that
so good.
Change who you are.
Do you wait on your weight to live your best life? All right, this is a video, has nothing to do with your weight, whatever your weight might be, nothing to do with that. This is a video about, are you waiting on your weight to live your best life? And how do you stop waiting on your weight to live your best life? And what has waiting on your weight already cost you in your life, in your relationships, in your friendships, in your ambitions, in your joy? Here's the deal, y'all. I go deep into this because there's so many lies. There's so many lies that lead to self-doubt in our lives. And it is time to start embracing and igniting those truths that wake up worthiness. And one of the biggest lies I go deep into the book Worthy about is called Your Weight Determines Your Worth, which is a lie. And the chapter is called Don't Wait on Your Weight. Here's the thing. Have you ever canceled plans because you didn't like how you looked? Or had you ever, opted out of the photo, or stood in the very back, or didn't go on the date, or didn't put on the swimsuit, or missed out on a fun memory and a fun experience, all because you didn't like how you looked? So here's the deal. If you've ever felt this way, you are not alone. In fact, and this is a shocking statistic, 89% of girls and women, studies find 89% of girls and women opt out of meaningful activities with friends, family, loved ones because of the way they look. It's astonishing. It's astonishing. And I go into deep about this belief that's a lie, that somehow our weight determines our worth. It is such a lie. And You know, our belief system, which I've heard called BS, belief system, which is usually BS, can be so powerful. And if we're not careful and if we're not aware of it, and if we don't learn how to change our limiting beliefs into beliefs that are empowering, it can come at a price that is way too expensive in our lives. You know, I built a company called It Cosmetics where millions and millions of women felt inspired and empowered because I would take my makeup off and show my bright red rosacea and you know, just explain how I don't see this as a flaw. Like, you know, like every one of us is beautiful, every single one of us. And even through that journey, I still struggled to feel enough in a swimsuit. So imagine this, I'm CEO of a $1 billion business that inspires millions of women, and I literally would struggle to even put on a swimsuit, right? I had so much body doubt. And here's one of the tools I implemented in my life to change it, because I was waiting on my weight to have fun. I was waiting on my weight to have experiences. And when I had my daughter Wonder, I'll never forget, like, we went to the pool for the first time. She was about 1 year old. And I had just had it. And I thought to myself, this belief system I have that somehow my weight determines my worth. I know it's a lie in my soul, right? The truth lives in our soul. Like, it's what we know in our gut and our intuition. If we pray or meditate, we'll hear it and we'll know it. We are more than enough exactly as we are. But my self-doubt and these lies that my belief system was telling me my whole life, that your weight determines your worth, had cost me so much. And I had this moment when my daughter Wonder was 1. And I was literally about to opt out of swimming and just have my husband Paula go with her. And I just was like, you know what? I had this huge aha moment. What has waiting on my weight already cost me in my life? The answer was way too much. And when I listed out all the things, and then I looked at my daughter and I'm like, I am teaching her right now that somehow she's not enough to just wear the swimsuit and embrace who she fully is if I'm going to hold back from doing it. And I had to stack all the pain that waiting on my weight had cost me and realize, you know what? That pain is far more than whatever story I'm telling myself about who's going to judge me or this or that in a swimsuit. And that was when I completely changed my belief system. I replaced the old limiting belief of my weight determines my worth, or I'm somehow not enough, or whatever, with new empowering beliefs. Like, I am setting an example for my daughter to know she is fully worthy right now. Or, you know what? I'm going to go out there and I'm going to shake my cellulite with pride at this public pool at the hotel, because I know it's going to give another woman or man, you know, permission to do the same, to feel less alone and more enough in their skin. Like, I had to flip the meaning that I gave to it. And I just want to share this with you today. And if this is, you know, if you're somebody that has let how you look hold you back, whether it's literal weight, or it's the weight of other people's expectations, or the weight of worry, just take a moment and write out what has waiting on that weight already cost you in your life. And is that pain too much? And is it time to replace those old limiting beliefs with new ones? So I have a whole chapter called Don't Wait on Your Weight in here, and I go deep into how to do this. And I'm going to read you just a little excerpt that I close the chapter with, because I think that for so many of us, this has cost us way too much. Way too much in our lives. And I think learning how to distinguish between what your belief system says and what your knowing says, right? Our belief system is the self-doubt, the thoughts in our mind that we can replace with empowering beliefs. And if we are wondering, is this a limiting belief? Tune into your soul. It'll tell you. Your knowing, right? Your intuition, your knowing will tell you, oh, that is a lie. You are more than enough. So I'm going to read you an excerpt from Worthy that just kind of talks about the difference between your knowing and your belief system. So your belief system says, don't put on a swimsuit. Your knowing says, Enjoy the waves splashing on your skin. Be grateful you have the mobility to move in the water. You have strong legs and feet and that feel the sand between your toes. You can feel the sunshine on your skin and the breeze hitting it, okay? That's the difference between what our thoughts and self-doubt will say and what our knowing says. Your belief system says, everyone's staring at you and judging. Your knowing says, your confidence in your body is giving another woman a permission slip to have confidence in hers. Your belief system says, watch your weight. Your knowing says, watch your soul. Your belief system says, the cellulite is awful. Your knowing, the truth, says, the genetic cell structure your creator designed with you is perfectly made for you and has no meaning other than what we give it. Your belief system says, I should feel embarrassed of my mom bod or dad bod. Your knowing says, be an example for your children of how they should feel about their bodies. Your belief system says, when I get to my goal weight, I'll be more successful. Your knowing says, a false belief will always leave you poor. Your belief system says, when I fit into a certain size of jeans, then I'll have peace. Your knowing says, if a belief costs you your peace, it's too expensive. Your belief system says, my babies won't notice I'm sitting on the sidelines of the pool. Your knowing says, I'm setting an example for them to one day also believe they're not worthy of swimming. Your belief system says you should wait until you're a different weight to have fun. Your knowing says, either have fun now or be haunted by the regret for all the fun you missed out on. Your belief system says when you're slimmer, your family member will finally give you her approval. Your knowing says she will never approve of you until she learns to stop disapproving of herself. Your belief system says, replay that hurtful comment someone made about your body. Your knowing says, hurt people, and that comment has nothing to do with you. Your belief system says, judge the photo based on how your body looks in it. Your knowing says, feel the gift of that moment of life captured in that photo. Your belief system says, you look terrible. Decline the video call with your friend so that they don't judge you. Your knowing says, anyone who judges you is not your friend. Your belief system says, measure your life based on the number on the scale. Your knowing says, measure a life well lived by the scale on which you love. Your belief system says, skip the day of fun. There'll always be another party or reunion. Your knowing says, you can never get this day back. Your belief system says, wear those painful heels so your legs look longer and slimmer. Your knowing says, it's time to go barefoot and run free. Your belief system says, when you get to a certain size, then you'll be happy. Your knowing says, whatever you do, you take you with you. Your belief system says, when I get thinner, he'll love me more. Your knowing says, attraction comes from the exchange of emotional chemical energy, and size does not biologically impact emotional or chemical energy. Your belief system says, they told you you'd be so much happier when you lose the weight. Your knowing says, that's just their belief system lying to them. Your belief system says, wait, you're not ready. Your knowing says, your waiting and your waiting season are over. Do not wait on your weight to live your best life, to wear the swimsuit, to get back on the dating app, to show up as who you authentically are, to stand in front of the mirror and say, I am beautiful, literally right now. The time for waiting on your weight is over.
There's a whole chapter in Worthy, by the way, called When You Change Your Relationship with Rejection, You Change Your Entire Life. So many of us have let past labels, past rejections, past failures, something someone else said about us, something, and we've like had it on repeat or stick to us like a label. And we've somehow believed that that's, gonna, by the way, when we let rejections and failures hurt us, they shake our confidence. But when we let them take root at an identity level to the point where we don't think, oh, I was rejected, or oh, I failed, we think I'm a reject, I'm a failure. That is when it can chip away at our self-worth. And I go in a lot about how to do that, because whether it was the biggest procrastinator, or a lot of other things that happened in my life, including mistakes I made, regrets I have, and how to not let the shame of those things stick to me forever, and how to really reframe them. And I go through like a whole process in the chapter about rejection and failure, because a lot of us, like, the fear of rejection and failure keeps us stuck. And I go into the 4 R's on just how do you reveal the meaning you're attaching to rejection and failure? How do you redefine that and assign a new meaning to it, and literally change your relationship with rejection and failure? Because I had to do that in that process of building at Cosmetics. I had to learn, okay, I've gotten hundreds of rejections. How do I make sure I don't think I am a reject and a failure? And also, how do I embrace it and assign a meaning to it that's not disempowering? And then I also, I don't know why this is on my heart right now. I hope it's okay to share it. But in that chapter, there's the 4 R's that you go through. And the third, which is like revealing your current definition of rejection. It's a long framework that's actually really awesome if you apply it to your life, but then also redefining rejection so that you're able to like become fearless about it. But my favorite one, just to share quickly, is I talk about how to revisit past rejections and failures and reveal what meaning you're attaching to them. Because a lot of us have had, our business not work out, or a relationship not work out, or we applied for the job, we wanted it so bad and the person didn't see our value, or we've had simple things that feel like rejection, like friends didn't invite us to the coffee. We're like, why wasn't I invited? Like these things happen to us all the time. And I talk about how to revisit past rejections, and also when they happen, how to reveal the meaning we're attaching to them and then redefine that meaning. And I talk about like how to build this toolbox of definitions, not just that sound good, but that you believe to be true in your soul about them. And part of how I built $1 billion business, or got through so many rejections, is the same tools I apply right now to this day. Where I had this toolbox where instead of like getting rejected, and my old default was like, oh, yep, there's proof again, I'm not enough. Like I started building a toolbox of new definitions, like, oh, rejection's God's protection. Or, rejection means I'm putting in the reps, I'm one step closer. Or rejection means I'm one of the brave ones willing to go for it. I'm not sitting on the sidelines. Like this rejection is a victory. It's a reminder I'm one of the brave ones willing to go for it. But really quick, when I look at past rejections and failures, for anyone maybe tonight who's letting one of those take root in their spirit, or just like attached to them, like lead balloons on their wings when they're trying to fly in life, or like a stuck label they think is permanent, I love to revisit past rejections that sometimes we don't realize we're hanging on to them, or past failures, and just acknowledge, like, what meaning am I assigning to that past rejection and failure? And really think about the meaning we're giving to it, and then redefine the meaning we're attaching to it with a new empowering meaning. And 2 quick examples. Do we have time for me to share this really fast? I want to make sure. You sure? Okay. Yeah. Just for someone who needs to hear it tonight, 2 quick examples. Like I was adopted, and most of my life, I felt like my parents worked a lot. So I was home alone watching Oprah. But most of my life, I felt, kind of abandoned. And I told myself stories. I didn't find out I was adopted till my late 20s, which was a big surprise. But I'd always told myself I was unwanted or abandoned. And it showed up in a lot of ways. It showed up in me staying in unhealthy, toxic relationships with people that hurt me for far too long. I would not leave because I didn't want to be abandoned. Later, as a boss at Cosmetics, over 1,000 employees, one of my weaknesses, even though I think I did a lot right, I did some things wrong. And one of my weaknesses was I wouldn't fire people soon enough if they really deserved it, because I didn't want to abandon them. And when I did this process that I talk about in the book, and redefined it for me in a way I believed it, like I was like, oh, wait, God chose me to be like my birth parents were together one time ever, then never again. Like I was chosen to be conceived. And then my birth mom, her life would have been way easier if she did not have me. But she chose to bring me, and then my adopted parents chose to raise me. I'm like, I am not rejected. I am chosen.
Yes.
And I believe that to my core, and it has shifted how I show up in relationships, etc. But the one I want to share, just for anyone who needs to hear this tonight, who has had someone not see their value, and you've let it somehow translate into you think you're not valuable, or you've had somebody who just pulled the rug out from underneath you, or crushed your heart, or a friend who betrayed your trust, like any of these rejections that so many of us face. I love to just revisit them, reveal what meaning am I attaching, and then reassign a new definition that I believe to be true. So my favorite one that I use almost daily, Tiffany, in my life, like almost daily, this is a habit for me now. I will literally, when I get rejected, when I don't get invited, my feelings are hurt, whatever it is, the person I want to be friends with is not into me, whatever it is, I will literally imagine God saying to me, oh, you weren't rejected. I hid your value from them because they're not assigned to your destiny. And I will believe that to my core. I believe God will hide our value from people who are not assigned to our destiny. And these definitions are what help me not let rejection and failure take root at an identity level that somehow I think I'm a rejecter, I'm a failure. And it helps me redefine them. And I still got a lot of issues, but fear of rejection and failure is not one of them. I am pretty fearless with it. And so anyways, I go through how to do that in chapter 2 of Worthy. That was almost its own book called When You Change Your Relationship with Rejection, You Change Your Life. But I didn't want to wait 2.5 years.
Yes.
So it's because you have to wait 2.5 more years to launch another book.
Yes.
So it's now chapter 2 in Worthy.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima! Jamie Kern Lima!
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.